Menanaysizus, colleagues, good morning. Uh, we will proceed. Yesterday we had successfully moved so that we can now hear um, resolution number 7-38 COR. I allow the good gentleman from Mongmototomaiti, the author, to go ahead and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Buenos and half a day, esteemed colleagues, and my people of Guam. Today, I rise to ask my colleagues to support resolution.
Excuse me, would you like to be able to ask to move the bill? Move the resolution?
I apologize, Mr. Speaker. Rust. At this time, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to move resolution number 7-38, a resolution to urge the federal government to fully fund and construct the maintenance of critical civilian infrastructure, including air raid shelters and civilian defense facilities on our islands. And I would like to move this bill to the third reading and discuss.
Is this resolution 7-38 COR as amended by the author?
Yes, sir.
Can you please?
Yes, this is resolution 7-38 as amended by the author.
You can proceed, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, let's try that again. Buenos and half a day, my colleagues, and to the people of Guam. Today, I rise to ask my colleagues to please support resolution 7-38, which I introduce to urge the United States federal government to fully fund the construction of and maintenance of civilian infrastructure, including air raid shelters and other civilian defense facilities on our island. This is not merely a call for funding. It is a fundamental call for safety and respect for the people of Guam, who are American citizens, no less deserving of the protection than any other community within the United States. Our geopolitical reality is clear. Situated strategically in the Indo-Pacific, Guam is undeniably central to America's defense posture. Yet being strategically crucial means we are inherently vulnerable. The Department of Defense has acknowledged Guam as a high-risk target. Analysts consistently emphasize that should regional tensions escalate, our civilian infrastructure, our airport communication systems, and essential public facilities would become immediate targets aimed at incapacitating military operations, effectively placing our civilian population at immense risk. Now, I've heard some of the chatter. Indeed, there is no shelter from the catastrophic devastation of a nuclear attack. However, expert testimony during our hearings has underscored that the likely threats we face are targeted attacks on runways and communication infrastructure, key assets for military readiness. If adversaries aim to disable our capacity to launch aircraft or maintain communication, civilians nearby will inevitably suffer. We will be collateral damage. There will be collateral effects on our community. And our people deserve, at minimum, facilities designed to offer protection from such attacks and support systems to mitigate mass casualty events. History teaches us a harsh lesson. Lessons we should heed now rather than later. In the Cold War era, the US government invested significantly in civilian protection across the mainland. Think about that. Russia, the USSR, which was what it was known at the time, was an entire continent and ocean away. And they still found the will and the funds and the determination to invest in civilian infrastructure so far away. Yet today, Guam, despite being at the front line, a frontline territory, they call us the tip of the spear. We are largely left defenseless. And that oversight, if we could call it that, is unacceptable. We cannot afford to wait for a crisis to validate our urgent plea. We should not wait until we are attacked before giving this very serious issue our full attention and power of our lobbying voice. Our allies in Japan and South Korea have set examples. They prioritize shelters and infrastructure designed explicitly for the civilian protection. It is imperative that the United States similarly invest in the safety and security of Guam's civilian population. It is a matter of safety, fairness, and national responsibility. This resolution is a message to Congress and the executive branch. It is a firm reminder that Guam must not be an afterthought. It must not be something that we think about down the line in our national security planning. This resolution signals to our federal partners that our protection is not optional, it's not secondary, it is not an afterthought, but it is integral to the integrity of the American promise. We must prepare now, collaboratively, to ensure our civilian infrastructure matches our military significance. We have over $10 billion worth of military hardware here on Guam. How much of that $10 billion is dedicated to the civilian defense and infrastructure and planning? I'd hazard to guess, very little. I also recognize that this resolution is not an end. This resolution is a beginning of a long dialogue between our local government and the United States federal government. And in this dialogue, I warmly welcome and encourage all my colleagues to present your ideas, present your changes, present your amendments, because this is not my resolution, this will be all our resolutions. And it's important that we present a unified and collaborative voice from our legislature. The safety of Guam's people transcends political lines. Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever you want to call yourself. But in this, we are all Guamanians. And in this, we should be unified in the safety of our home. It is our collective responsibility and our priority. So, together, let us send a united and powerful message to Washington today. Do not forget Guam. Invest in our civilian infrastructure and commit fully to protecting our people. I ask my colleagues to please support this bill, and with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. On the resolution, are there any colleagues who wish to speak on the resolution? Are there any colleagues that wish to speak on the resolution? Very well. Would the author of the resolution like to close?
Oh, that's okay, Mr. Speaker. I think we have plenty of business to do today, so at this time, I would just like to make a motion to move Resolution 7-38 as amended to the third reading for voting.
On the motion to move Resolution 7-38 COR as amended by the author, are there any objections? No objections? Or let's take a minute recess. Okay, minute recess. I warned them. They went up to the second. They said it started earlier. Started earlier or not? Especially in the front, huh? Because I get those texts when the other chairs are empty. Yeah. No, I understand. You know, but yeah, I'm waiting for it. The legislature is back in session. Next on the agenda is Bill 58-38 COR. The gentleman from Barragata, you are recognized. All right, we'll go ahead and do this. Pursuant to our rules, we're going to retake a recess to resolve into the Committee of the Whole for the purposes of deliberation of Bill 58-38 COR. That will be chaired by Senator Dueñas, Chairman of the Committee on Finance, Government Operations. Okay, and so we'll go into recess and then we'll take it from there. Okay, so we're in recess.
AB ready? Sarge? Buenos dias, Mananas Tatlu. Welcome back to the Guam Legislature. At this time, the Committee of the Whole is called to order. Materials for the Committee of the Whole are in a shared session Google folder labeled Committee of the Whole, Bill number 58-38 COR. Proposed amendments must be submitted in writing to the clerks via email at session@guamlegislature.gov. Amendments not in writing will be called out of order. And at this time, I want to mention that all amendments must be in the drive at the end of round 2, so that when we start on the amendments and comments, all amendments will be in, and they'll be out of order if they're not in when we start in the 3rd round. 3 rounds of discussion. We will have 2 rounds for questions of the panel, with each senator allotted 5 minutes for questions, not including responses. Time to speak may not be yielded from more than one member to another. A member who yields that member's time on a question yields the member's time all the time and will not be allowed to speak, even after the time yielded was not used. Section 1.02D3, that is our standing rules. After the completion of the 2 rounds questions, panelists will be excused. The 3rd round is for amendments or comments, and speak to the bill, please. Questions shall be confined to the substance or nature of Bill 38-COR, or 3838-COR. No, that's supposed to be 58, sorry. 58-38-COR. Personal inferences as to the character or motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violations of this general rule of conduct will be called out of order and may result in removal from the hall. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum will be restricted from participating and will be escorted and removed from the room. After we complete discussion on the bill, I will allow the sponsor to close, and I will entertain a motion for the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole, followed by a motion to rise from the Committee of the Whole, at which time I will report out the bill as recommended by the Committee of the Whole. Thank you. Right now, I'm going to have the panelists who have joined us today introduce themselves. And after this introduction, they will be sworn in by the Sergeant at Arms. I will start to my far right here. Please introduce yourself.
Hapaday, good morning. My name is Rachel Field. I'm the University of Guam's budget officer.
Randy Wiegand, Vice President, Administration and Finance for UOG.
Mananasitus Todosanzo, Guahusi Anita Borja Enriquez. I am the president of the University of Guam.
Buenas half a day, everyone. Charlene Santos Bamba, Senior Vice President and Provost.
Hafade Llewellyn Tulahi, Chief Fiscal Analyst from the Office of Finance and Budget.
They will now be sworn in by Sergeant of Arms at this time.
Please stand and raise your right hand. Under penalty of perjury, do you affirm that any and all information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Mr. Chair, you're under oath. You may proceed.
A couple announcements before I proceed to the author of the bill to introduce the bill. Ed Byrne from DOA is on his way. I will not restrict any of your time for his questions. We'll come back to you as we go through the rounds, and you can ask him all the questions you want with the same allotted time. Also, I want to make an announcement at this point. I've had some questions in terms of, this is the anniversary of my policy statement last Friday, in terms of the fiscal condition of our government and the lateness of our audits, that the Office of Finance and Budget, under my direction as the chair, we will not hear any appropriation measures that have been introduced until we have clear timelines on the audit, and when we can see that these realizations of revenue are accurate and that they can be backed up by at least an interim audit placement or audit presentation to see if it's tracking correctly meaning between revenues and expenditures. The reason why I'm hearing this bill today is, as you know, many of the members that are here in the last 37th Guam Legislature, a number of times, I believe 2 times, there were these appropriations with varying different amounts to the University of Guam that were in and then were removed. This is a carryover of that appropriation that was introduced by one of our members and then reintroduced by another member. And so we are deliberating this for that purpose. But going forward, we will wait until audited financials for any other measures that are calling for appropriations within fiscal year 2025 revenues. So at this time, I will now recognize the author of Bill 5838, Mr. Senator Vince Bora. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to read the bill into the record, today I'm here to discuss Bill number 58-38, COR, an act to appropriate $5,750,984 from the fiscal year 2025 general fund revenues collected in excess of the adopted levels enumerated in Public Law 37-125 to the University of Guam for the purpose of operations, repairs, maintenance, capital improvement projects, and accreditation-related priorities. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to provide remarks and for your continued partnership in ensuring that we do the right by the University of Guam. As we discussed during the public hearings, the University of Guam was shortchanged in this fiscal year's budget. Recognizing this, the Chairman of the Office of Finance and Budget in the 37th Guam Legislature, Senator Joe San Augustine, included a supplemental appropriation for the university. However, during deliberations on the supplemental budget, the appropriation for UOG was inadvertently removed. I will not dwell on the details as my colleagues have access to the committee report, which contains pages of testimony underscoring the university's urgent need for funding. The reality is stark. UOG is facing a serious financial crisis. In a letter dated January 30, 2025, UOG informed my office that while they requested a budget of $44.9 million, they were only appropriated $34.2 million. This forced them to absorb the operational costs of the Guam Cultural Repository, further reducing their net appropriation to under $32.6 million. To cover its core operational expenses, including faculty salaries, IT modernization, and critical infrastructure repairs, the university needs at least $39.9 million. This leaves UOG with the $5.75 million shortfall. Without immediate intervention, the university will run out of funds by July of this year. The consequences of this budget gap are severe. Faculty and staff vacancies remain unfilled, essential infrastructure repairs are delayed, and accreditation-related improvements are at risk. Additionally, UOG has been forced to divert funds meant for furnishing and equipping the newly constructed schools of health and engineering, the Water and Environmental Research Institute, and the Student Success Center, leaving an additional $2.7 million need unmet. Bill 58-38 aims to rectify this oversight. This measure appropriates $5,750,984 million from the fiscal year 2025 general fund revenues collected in excess of the adopted levels enumerated in Public Law 37-125 to UOG for operations, repairs, maintenance, capital improvement projects, and accreditation-related priorities. This funding will ensure the university remains functional, competitive, and fully accredited. Let me be clear, this is not a political issue. This is about Guam's future. UOG is integral to our economy, workforce development, and regional leadership. Every dollar invested in UOG generates additional revenue through tuition, research grants, and federal funding, benefiting the entire island. Failing to act now would jeopardize an institution that has shaped Guam's leaders, professionals, and workforce for over 70 years. For these reasons, I urge my colleagues to support Bill 58-38 and provide the University of Guam with the funding it critically needs. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, again for your partnership, and I thank you to my co-sponsors for putting our students at the forefront. I look forward to the fruitful dialogue today during the Committee of the Whole.
Thank you for your opening statement on the bill, Senator Borja. And as the author of the bill, I will give you the privilege of being the first to ask questions of the University of Guam panel. And also, once again, we have OFB with us, and we have the representative from BBMR on his way, Ed Byrne. So please proceed, Senator Bora.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my questions will be directed to the UOG panel. When draft legislation requesting 5.7 million in supplemental funding for UOG was given to my committee, the legislative intent displayed what the money would be used for: operations, repairs, maintenance, capital improvement projects, and accreditation-related priorities. But during the February 28 public hearing for Bill 58-38, it was stated that the whole amount, all 5.7 million, would be used to pay staff salaries and benefits. In subsequent meetings and correspondence to my office and the committee chair, it was discussed as this would go towards accreditation-related priorities. Can we just state for the record what exactly will this money go towards?
Ms. Masi, Senator Borja, when we initially approached your office with regard to the gap for fiscal year 2025 budget for the University of Guam, we came with a figure approximately $12.4 million. And what that figure represented was specifically what was specified on the title of Bill 58-38 to cover capital improvement projects, repairs and maintenance, and accreditation-related priorities. Accreditation-related priorities relate to our WASC Senior College and University Commission accreditation standards, expectations, as well as the professional accreditation requirements for programs such as nursing, education, social work, engineering, business administration, and public administration. All of these relate to quality of learning, student success, student engagement, student support, facilities, maintenance, management, and most importantly, financial sustainability. All of these factors are included in just about every accreditation review. So when we approach initially you and other senators, we wanted to present that gap of over $12 million. We found a way to reduce that gap to something that was more reasonable from 12.4 to roughly about 5.7 million, which is what we have before us in Bill 5838. And so what we took away from that $12+ million were the following: vacancies, 5% faculty salary adjustment, IT modernization initiatives, and capital repairs, which total approximately 6.7 million. So when we appeared before this body during the public hearing for Bill 5838, based on the 5.7 million, that really only brings down to a really dire gap of people. And those academic and student affairs personnel who support our accreditation-related priorities. And so for that 5.7 million, we actually came back and presented before you, revised, because we heard there was a lot of concern about having all of this go towards accreditation-related priorities. We came up with the following breakdown: $1 million for capital improvements, $392,686 for repairs and maintenance, and $4,358,298 for accreditation-related priorities. Accreditation-related priorities have to do with all the personnel who have to support those items which I have just relayed, related to taking care of the quality of the programs through faculty and other academic-related personnel, supporting the students with regard to care, advisement, financial aid, etc., and taking care of other needs, including behavioral health, IT support, online learning, among other factors. So that is what we have presented before this body. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. With federal cuts occurring, with more looming and Guam's hospitality industry floundering at best, what, if anything, is the leadership of the University of Guam doing to cut costs and save some money?
Thank you very much. With the current threat across all agencies from the federal landscape, every day is a fluid day. Every day, figures change. Every day, communication, new pieces of communication unfold. We are tracking all of that from a risk management perspective. We are making corresponding adjustments where staffing is at risk. We were able to move those respective personnel who were at risk of losing their jobs as a result of either furloughs or perhaps possible termination to other positions that were funded from other areas. And so what we're doing is we have already been engaging in cost-efficient initiatives, including dual hatting of administrators, covering positions that have been vacated, prioritizing hiring of any vacated positions, whether they be through retirement or resignation, prioritizing spending, commissioning a task force for addressing cost efficiencies and deficit reductions at the University of Guam. So that task force is already in place. Taking a look at other ways that we can experience efficiencies through our utilities, cutting down on certain kinds of expenditures as well. So all of those are being addressed, Senator Borja. I know that because of this additional unanticipated threat to our financial sustainability, that we are trying to manage the current portfolio that we have in place. Thank you.
And then with our current resources, how are we maximizing current existing resources at the university?
Well, everything is being mapped and aligned with not only budget, but also cash flow. And so in terms of maximizing, we prioritize what is required. We understand that we have obligations to our vendors. We track that down. We also understand that our priority is to our people to ensure that payroll continues. And we also know that with whatever is earmarked for specific purposes, whether they be grants or whether they be through the local appropriation, that we're managing those effectively. And with regard to many different personnel who are involved in monitoring that, we do have administrators who are keeping close watch over spending, and we also are examining other ways that we can employ being able to maximize on what limited resources we currently have.
And with grants, is there any way to use grants towards operational expense?
Well, the federal grants are by law earmarked for the specific purpose for that respective grant. For example, receiving a grant maybe from the National Institute of Health that is directed towards training for caregivers of elders with Alzheimer's. And so the funds that are earmarked for that particular program cannot be used for operations. They cannot be used for utilities. They cannot be used for accounting, HR, other kinds of support, including facilities maintenance. So while we would love to have that flexibility to be able to use part of that, we currently are unable to do so.
Thank you. One last question. Should this measure not pass, what happens to the university? I know summer course schedules are out and students are already planning their fall semesters. When would you start canceling classes, and what classes would start getting cut? Should you not get this funding?
Thank you for that question. Summer classes are paid for through tuition, and faculty and adjunct instructors who teach for us over the summer are paid on a percentage of that collected tuition through a formula that we have in place. So the funds that are used to pay for summer courses are not used for those adjunct or for those faculty from locally appropriated dollars.
Thank you, Madam President. Those are all my questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Senator Borja. I'll now go to Senator Sabrina Salas-Montanani.
Thank you. I wanted to ask questions related to this March 5th letter to the Speaker regarding the breakdown of the funds. So I noticed that it says repairs, maintenance, $392,000, accreditation, related priorities, $4.3 million, so that's $4.7 million total just for those two categories. It says employees, so 4.7 million out of the 5.7 requested, it is going to salaries and raises. Can you please be more specific?
Thank you, Senator Salas-Montanani. There are no raises associated with that figure. The personnel who will be paid from that particular figure include all the personnel from the School of Business and Public Administration, the School of Education, the School of Health, the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences, the College of Natural Applied Sciences, the Institutional Effectiveness and Assessment Office that is part of our WASP requirements, the Senior Vice President that supports everything that has to do with accreditation, that office, the Center for Online Learning for the continuity of our online courses, the School of Engineering, Enrollment Management and Student Services that make up everything that has to do with student affairs oversight, the Student Life Office that is a direct linkage to all of our student organizations, the Student Counseling Office, which includes the ADA Student Services, Career Placement, Admissions and Records, Student Health, Financial Aid Office, the UOG Library, the Micronesian Area Research Center with regard to the support for the Master of Science, the Master of Art in Micronesian Studies program, Chamorro Language and Culture, the Office of Information Technology, the EEO office, as well as the auxiliary support that supports students. All of those make up the overarching accreditation standards in order to ensure that the University of Guam provides for the quality of learning, as well as for the proper support of student services and engagement, as well as other needs with regard to taking care of the overall academy.
So, okay, so just in basic terms, 4.7 out of the 5.7 million being requested will go to roughly around 300 something employees for their salaries.
Absolutely. So just to clarify, Madam Senator, repairs and maintenance of 392,686, those are the individuals who ensure that the classrooms are running, that the facilities for support for the academic, the academic purposes of the university are clean, and ensure that other areas that need troubleshooting are accounted for. Okay. Thank you.
And none of it will go to raises. This is just for,
no.
Again, 300
that's
or
just
so
for what's already within
our salaries.
Our budget.
Okay, so,
yes.
so in the bill, it does state that some of this funding was supposed to go to the purchase of furniture for the schools of health and engineering, Weary, and the Student Success Center. I don't see any of this in this breakdown. It only lists the capital improvements for the roof repairs. Yeah. So where do you anticipate getting funding for the furniture for these buildings?
Thank you for that question. We are working on that. We did not want to include this in the breakdown because we knew that the priority right now is to ensure that we keep our people intact with regard to supporting, again, repairs and maintenance for facilities, as well as the overall support for the academic and student affairs and other related support areas.
When is the completion date for the School of Health and then the School of Engineering, Weary, and Student Success Center? Okay. And if it's coming up close, how are you going to get the furniture on time?
Okay. Thank you very much. We do have our overall construction manager working hand in hand with our architect firms for identifying just those. We've already worked on securing quotes for those furniture, fixtures, and equipment. The only thing is to make sure that the funding is available. We will explore other sources for that funding. The School of Engineering is earmarked for completion by the latter part of May. The Dr. Lucio C. Tan Student Success Center is earmarked for completion by June. The Margaret Paris Hattori Uchima School of Health, as well as the Water and Environmental Research Institute of the Western Pacific, are earmarked for completion during the latter part of September. Those completion dates, the ribbon cutting would maybe move a little bit to the right in anticipation of having all of our furniture, fixtures, and equipment in place.
So how confident are you that you'll have that FF&E by these targeted completion dates?
I'm very, very confident. Thank you.
Okay. Was any federal funding allocated for FF&E for any of these construction projects?
Let me just go through what we have received as a result of that. For the, yeah. So for the Dr. Lucio C. Tan Student Success Center, we received $900,000 provided by the Governor's Office from U.S. Treasury funds, $900,000 for the FF&E. And let's see, I don't, that's it. That's it. Thank you.
So you're still looking for funding for the School of Engineering for FF&E, which is projected to be completed in just a couple months?
Yes.
May.
Yeah, we're working on it.
How much is needed for that?
For the School of Engineering itself, we're looking at, we still have a balance of, oh, where is that? I think I have it. Yeah, 2 million for that, at least 2 million, sorry.
Do you
But I had that.
anticipate coming back to the legislature and asking for 2 million for that?
Absolutely not.
That's all I have for now.
Thank you.
As you can see, Senators, just to announce that Mr. Byrne from DOA has arrived, and he will be answering questions in replacement as well for Lester Carlson from BBMR. So he'll be handling those questions, and of course, OFB is here. So thank you, Senator Montanani. I'll now go to Speaker Frank Blas. And also, he was sworn in outside, Speaker, just so you know.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and to the panel, good morning. Yes, I want to be able, Mr. Byrne, I'm sorry you just sat down and gave time to relax. But I guess the overriding question that I have here is this appropriation basically calls for about $5.7 million. Simple question. Is there funding that's available to be able to address this need? Good morning. I'll give you time to relax, okay?
Thank you for allowing me to be a little bit late. I kind of was tied up. The latest CRER that you have is for February. And that's great, then. It doesn't have a date on. But if we can refer to the CRER, and in particular on page 3 of 9, we have collected just over 37 million more than our estimated revenues. So, you know, as far as collections are concerned, yes, there is available funding to fund this particular bill. Please note, however, that there are some appropriations already against it of about just under 10 million, so that reduces the availability slightly, but there's still 27.5 left for appropriation.
And just for clarity purposes, I mean, this is a report that's actually prepared by BBMR as opposed to your office.
It's jointly prepared, Senator.
Jointly prepared.
Speaker, yes.
So I just wanted, I mean, I know that, you know, Mr. Carlson is currently unavailable, and you're going to speak to this, but you know, I want with some, I guess, confidence. Are you confident that this is funding that at least $5.7 million that could be made available at what time?
Yes, the actual figures originate with DOA, and then they're reviewed both by DNA staff and BBMR staff before they're finally issued. So my staff actually goes through and checks the revenues, and they actually made some adjustments based upon information for the year to date. So I'm more than usually confident as a result of that review that this number is a good number. And I'm required to sign this as well.
Okay. you had mentioned that while there is about $37 million, you still have about $10 million in appropriations that have already been appropriated, so down $27 million. Other than those appropriations, do you anticipate any funding that's necessary for repayment or to catch up on 3-year-old bills?
Well, Mr. Speaker, you are the recipient of the letters that come from agencies with prior year payments. Most of them are pretty small. I saw one recently, I think the latest one was like 27,000. So obviously that causes you to question it, and we're going to look into that. But if you extrapolate the monthly amount, it's usually well under 100,000 for prior year calls.
Okay.
Other than that, we have often discussed the issues surrounding the Homeland Department and the fact that they continue to have to draw upon the general fund for additional funding. But again, you know, that's not, in a month, that's not a huge amount. It's probably $250,000 or so. And I want to be clear, because I know this question came up, is that we actually write off to the general fund their loss each year. So the general fund balance has already taken that into account.
Okay. Just one more question with regard to Homeland Security and Civil Defense. Recently been informed that as much as $8 million has been deemed to be uncollectible, recognizing already that it had been spent. Okay. Do we anticipate any funding that we would have to return to Homeland Security and Civil Defense that would go against this amount?
Obviously, we're doing whatever we can to prevent that situation occurring. I have to say that the federal staff that we deal with have been very, very helpful in allowing us to try and achieve that objective. And they've given us suggestions and helpful ways to avoid that. And to date, no one has actually issued a demand for that amount.
Okay. Are you confident that now, based on all the discussion we have with regard, we've already set aside $10 million because it's been already appropriated, took it down to $27 million. And with, I guess, agencies coming in with, they need to pay these amounts in anticipation for any other amounts that we would have to pay, return. Are you confident that this at least $5.7 million will be made available after you take away, you consider all of those payments that would need to be paid? Not to say that we can prioritize them in a certain fashion, it's just taking them for as they are. You know, assuming that everything has to be paid all at the same time, is there enough to be able to provide?
This is all predicated upon how we collect our revenues. We don't necessarily collect it evenly each month, and actually February traditionally has been not a good month. This February seems to have kicked that trend. We can't predict that something untoward is going to happen, and indeed we can't predict what tax changes might occur in Washington that come through and affect our income tax, in particular collections. But we have no information at the moment, and I have no information at the moment that would say that that 37 million or the 27 million that's left isn't sufficient to at least satisfy this particular bill.
Okay, you know, again, you know, I recognize this is a snapshot of today, and things could change. I understand. I won't hold it against you. Okay. Very little time left, so I want to get with the University of Guam. Madam President, can you expound a little bit more? I'm just a little, and I'll say it, a little uncomfortable with a generalized category of accreditation-related priorities. Can you expound a little bit more on what that is, seeing that takes up the bulk of what of the amount that you're asking for?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When we first presented our fiscal year 2025 budget, we included everything that was needed to address that. Everything we do to support the academic mission of the University of Guam includes all the personnel that are hired, including faculty who teach within the 25 bachelor's degree programs, 18 master's degree programs, and our single doctoral degree in education. And so those particular positions require adherence to accreditation with regard to the quality of faculty and the quality of learning. For example, in both WASC accreditation and the ABET accreditation for the School of Engineering, those full-time faculty we hire to teach in the School of Engineering must hold a PhD and a PE designation. And so those types of credential positions are hard to hire, including those required to teach in the nursing program, either an MSN or a PhD, plus an RN designation. Those are just examples of those particular types of positions that are directly related to the quality of learning. Also, anything that supports students, that's also part of a WASC accreditation umbrella. I could have Dr. Charlene expand on that. Anything that has to do with program reviews and so forth, or assessment personnel are critical. Other types of staff support in the academic realm are critical, including IT support, library support, the student affairs support, anything to do with ensuring that the classroom is safe, the classroom has the necessary support that is required so that courses can continue running, as well as anything that has to do with just support overall for financial sustainability. So in our recent review by the WASC Senior College University Commission accreditation site visit team, the university was cited for a number of things relating to these. One of those has to do with financial sustainability. Financial sustainability ensures that we keep, or we attain the adequate number of personnel for the degree programs, the adequate number of support for assessment, for program review, for student support, services, for IT support, and so forth. So that's what I have in general. I can have Dr. Charlene expand. Dr. Charlene?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Accreditation review is basically a 360-degree review of the entire institution. And that includes not just academic programs, as the President mentioned, but also the kinds of supports in place. There's academics, there's research, and then there's the service component of our institution. When we think about the review process alone and the kinds of supports that students need, it's not just the teaching in the classroom. We also need to ensure that they have mental health support, that there's adequate food services on campus, that the campus is safe and clean for them, and that there are an adequate number of advisors and faculty members in place to provide support. The accreditation review also looks at, are we up to date with our research? how are we expanding our research, and how is that going out into the community? So they do take a look at that as well. And so really that 360-degree view provides the accreditors an opportunity to see how functional we are and what the impact we have in our community and the communities that we serve.
Okay, I'm gonna try to keep this under 49 seconds. Based on the presentation that you have just provided, the question I'm gonna ask very specifically again, is any of this funding gonna go towards employee salary or raises?
As noted earlier, the personnel, yes, those salaries. And as far as raises, no adjustments in pay except for whatever increment is earmarked for classified employees, obviously, and whatever increment has already been received prior to today. But not under the 5.7 million, sorry.
Okay, I'll save that for my next round. However, $4,358,298. That sounds like you pretty much got a listing of where this money is going to be going to.
Yes.
Do you
we
happen to have that specific listing?
Yes.
Can we get a copy of that?
Yes.
Okay, please. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm out of time.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will make sure that the clerks handle that and get that passed out to this Masi. I will now go to the Vice Chair of Education, Senator Tina Muñoz Barnes.
Manana Sidus and Sidus Masi, Mr. Chair, for giving me the opportunity to ask some questions and to the panel members this morning. Thank you for being here, and Manana Sidus. To UOG, I know that you have made the case, but I really just want to make sure that the body and the public understands that the budget shortfalls that you are facing, that if you don't get the subsidy proffered in Bill 58, what will the University of Guam be forced to do in response to the appropriations this body approved in the current budget law?
Thank you. We've already employed our financial management plan, spending plan, but as positions become vacated, they will be frozen. In order to address furloughs, we have to take a look at our internal policies. Obviously, anything that has to do with classified personnel, our hands are tied. We must follow the rules and regulations with regard to classified. We are also governed by our board union, faculty union agreement. And there is a specific guideline with regard to how we address any kind of furloughs. Anything that's not governed by those two sets of rules and regulations, we can manage under the Board of Regents, but we're looking at furloughs. We're looking at possible phasing out of certain degree programs because we just don't have enough personnel to support what is needed for accreditation-related purposes. But for the most part, we're also looking for other ways in which we can identify cost efficiencies. I already have a task force in place for addressing cost efficiencies and deficit reduction. We will also have another task force with regard to revenue enhancement, diversifying revenue programs, as well as building enrollment. And so those two will be very complementary, including our efforts towards advancement in terms of raising funds for capital projects, repairs, maintenance, scholarships, and whatnot.
I appreciate that plan. So just a follow-up to my question number one is, will there be payless paydays without this bill?
We anticipate, based on how we are tracking with regard to appropriations, allotments, cash flow, that the earliest is, if not late July, then possibly the start of August. We don't know how the federal, the impact from the Trump administration, what that will have on specific grants that we currently have in place, and how that will affect, obviously, other parts of our cash flow situation. All of our academic units depend on external funds to support what isn't funded. by the fiscal year's local appropriation, what is not funded, most of which consists of supplies, contracts, academic-related travel, among other things. So the academic units, the research units depend on those external funds. Obviously, if those dry up, we're starting to see notices about funds that have been revoked, programs that have been terminated, et cetera. And so that is also going to compound cash flow issue at the University of Guam.
Thank you for that. My next question is thanks to the meetings organized by your oversight chair, I was made aware by you, Dr. Enriquez, and your management team that the 5.75 million request is actually lower than your total budget shortfall. So my question here is, can you please inform this body what needed expenditures you have to cut to land on this 5.75 million figure?
Thank you very much. We had approximately $2.2 million in vacancies that were included in the original $44 million request for fiscal year 2025. Included in what we cut was the 1.1%, 1.1 million, which represented the 5% faculty salary adjustment. We also took out the 2.4 million for IT modernization projects, which included the systems that we have in place based on the vendor that has moved everything to the cloud. So we have to make that adjustment to ensure that the university remains updated as well as efficient. We also removed capital repairs at $1 million. So that is a total of $6.7 million. We reduced from the $12.4 million shortfall to arrive at the $5.7+ million.
Thank you for that explanation. I have two more, Mr. Chair, and you know, of course, the impacts of the budget shortfalls on tuition rates is a huge concern for our University of Guam students. Can you provide the body's assurance that this subsidy will maintain the current tuition rates? And what has the University of Guam done recently to assist the University of Guam students who struggle financially to continue and complete their higher education?
Thank you very much, Madam Senator. So we have not raised tuition this academic year. We do have the ability to raise tuition by 5% in the new academic year, but that depends on where our current financial situation lies or ends up by the end of this fiscal year. We try as much as possible not to increase tuition. How we are helping the students, we have many different scholarships in place. They are private scholarships through the generous donation of many different organizations and associations across our island, and those that represent endowed scholarships maintained at the UOG Endowment Foundation. We have the Last Mile Scholarship, to which a number of you have so generously contributed towards and will continue to provide. The Last Mile Scholarship represents a scholarship earmarked for a senior level student who is within 30 credit hours of graduating with their bachelor's degree. And so we work with our bursar's office, that is our collections office, to identify students who are at risk of stopping out because of financial constraints. And we work hand in hand with our UOG Financial Aid Office, as well as our UOG Endowment Foundation Office, to ensure that we assist those particular students. We also have, through the generous support of the Guam Legislature, the Student Financial Assistance Program, which funds education majors, nursing majors, social work majors, our merit scholars, who are your top students from across every single high school on island, as well as others who have worked hard towards advancing their grade point average. We reward them with some form of tuition discount to address that, among other things. So we are doing everything we can to help our students, and we are working with other future donors to ensure that we keep college affordability at the forefront in terms of supporting our students.
Situs Maasi for that. I really appreciate the support and working closely with the endowment and a lot of us in the community who continue to see that the university is working to literally graduate a lot of our students who truly want to come into the community to serve. My last question, Mr. Chair, if I may, to the university is this appropriation is meant to go to a number of operational areas, including accreditation related activities. So my question is to UOG, can you please explain what activities related to your accreditation cannot be funded without this bill?
Okay. Thank you very much. Dr. Charlene Santos Bamba is our accreditation liaison officer to the WA Senior College and University Commission. I will have her address that question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your question was what cannot be funded if we do
Right.
not get this?
Can you please explain what activities related to your accreditation cannot be funded without this bill?
I'm going to reaffirm what I said earlier, Senator, and that is accreditation is 360 degrees, and that includes all academic and research units. So we're looking at academic programs and student support services. Student support services in particular really is a large component of academic and student affairs. And that includes dormitories, it includes mental health services, academic and behavioral counseling. It includes advisement and financial aid. And so all those areas, of course, require individuals to run those services. And it should also be noted that we do also have students employed in these areas, students who work and students who go to school full-time. And so with this funding, that's the possibility. So student employees who are impacted, should we not get this funding, means that they won't have a payday, and then it may impact their progress in their education. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Charlene. And you know, Mr. Chair, I really want to say thank you for bringing this measure. And I know that you're really staunched about until we can get the full audits and all that coming in. But literally, as I believe that UOG is the educational gem of this part of the Blue Continent, I think it's important that we realize that the resources that we need to provide is so that we can educate and have our students have the necessary tools so they can go through this process of higher education and graduate. And I just want to say that I really appreciate, Mr. Chair, that this measure is being heard today, and as the Vice Chair, working closely with the good Senator, I think, where's he from, Timoni? Barragata, my father's village. I want to say that I think this is something that we can show the community that we care, and the education to success for our students is very vital, very critical, and this is why we're doing this bill. So, Sizuas Masi for giving me the opportunity to ask all those questions. Thank you, sir.
Buen provecho, Vice Chair. I now go to Senator Lujan. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, panel. Just a couple of questions. Capital improvement projects, you have basically 4 areas: roof repairs for the RFK library, the residence halls, roof repairs, as well as the skylight repairs for both humanities and social science building, and the Tan Lam Pek Kim English and Communications buildings, right? Okay. And that's $1 million. You have a breakdown for all of them, right? Okay. And then you have repairs and maintenance, 46 employees that do the facilities repairs and maintenance.
Is it safe to say then, because these capital improvement projects, are they all in-house repairs? I mean, do you do them all in-house? Are this $1 million just for supplies then, or do you have to outsource this? Do you have to do an RFP for the repairs?
Do we outsource? No. These are, thank you, Senator Lujan, these are in-house?
In-house?
Yes.
Okay, so the $1 million is basically for supplies and all that, right?
Yeah, well, we'll obviously have to procure supplies associated with these. Yes.
Okay, but your maintenance folks are the ones that do the repairs for these, or the repairs needed, right? So you won't have to, I mean, this $1 million is not going to go to a contractor
let me just
repair
have
the facilities. These
Thank
facilities
you.
stated, right?
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were talking about the capital line item.
Yeah, the capital
we will
improvement, yes.
probably be using some outside contractors to help with the roof
Okay,
repair.
so with all that inclusive, it's $1 million for all that in-house repairs. I mean, from in-house personnel. Likewise, maybe some outside. Okay, got it. Thank you. Just one other thing as well. Dr. Enriquez, earlier you said it hasn't been anticipated, but it's yet to be determined whether tuition will be increased or not?
Yes, so it just depends on where our FY 2026 budget lands. We
Okay.
anticipate that we won't get our full request, and if we have not been able to identify other means in which we can help to fulfill what we need to carry out the operations beginning October 1st, 2025, then we have the opportunity to increase tuition by 5%.
Okay.
And that's the cap.
Okay. Should you not get this funding, will that again maybe contribute to a possibility that a tuition increase may occur?
The funding is for this current fiscal year,
Yeah, okay.
FY 2025. The FY 2026 budget has still yet to be finalized in terms of the appropriation. And so that will help determine whether or not the 5% will be needed.
Will be needed, okay.
Yes.
Now, one other thing is, you know, in your accreditation, and I know, you know, as the former vice chair for higher education in the previous term, the importance when the accreditation team looks at the autonomy of the University of Guam. When the legislature dictates that you are not to do certain things, how does that bode with the accreditation team?
Thank you for that question. The overarching concern always is financial sustainability. What does the University of Guam's financial management plan look like? How is it employing its levers that are available to them? The levers with regard to state appropriation, the lever with regard to tuition and fees, its endowment, advancement efforts. How is it, you know, how has it planned and executed those particular levers? When our efforts are impeded with regard to the lever to which we have full control under our University of Guam Board of Regents, it impacts us heavily, and it becomes a financial sustainability issue. And so we take a look very carefully about any potential increases in any tuition or fees. And if it's something that we feel according to the kind of demographic of students we have, if most of them are reliant on full Pell Grant as an example, or federal student loan, then we know that the affordability of an increase in tuition and or fees is something of heavy consideration before we pull, you know, any kind of lever. So the tuition increase of 5% has always been available to us. We just haven't pulled that lever because we felt it unnecessary, or we felt that it just wasn't very good timing based on the composition of students we have. Those, of course, are still struggling post-Typhoon Mawar, post-COVID. And so moving forward, we take a look at the state of the economy, the state of employment, the available types of scholarships our students have, the increase in Pell Grant, and how that could absorb some of any type of increase, whether it be a 5% increase in tuition or increase in course or lab or any kind of fees. Thank you.
Okay. So should we, should this body dictate to you then that you must not increase a tuition, what would that, does that vote again with the accreditation team?
Well, we expect that we would add that difference into our budget requests or budget needs. In fact, that's already factored into our FY 2026 request. If it is reduced, obviously that will prompt us to pull the trigger on the 5% increase on tuition. We are going to try as much as possible not to do that. As you know, that's one critical lever that we have in order to manage financial sustainability. And financial sustainability, as a reminder, is one of our key accreditation standards and how we balance that out.
Okay. Now, you know, I mean, the reason why I was asking this, I'm going to ask this question because if you see this trend as well, you know, in the Guam public school system, we see a number of students, I mean, a loss of students, basically. Now, that could be a loss to the charter schools or private schools or maybe off island. What do you see as a trend in the university? Do you see your enrollment? I mean, do you see that trend as well in student loss, or what is that trend in higher education?
Thank you. We've seen that trend follow through into higher education. Obviously, the external factors that had to do with post-COVID. Many students still experiencing a little bit of trauma from that. We recognize that through our behavioral health counselors' observation of our students, through our faculty's observation of students and learning loss and how that's impacting whether or not students come our way. Meeting students high school graduates who are taking not just one gap year, not just 2 gap years, but 3 or more gap years because they are still trying to figure out what they're going to navigate moving forward. And so we also have other kinds of factors that have been beyond our control that have affected primarily new freshmen. We did see an uptick or an increase in our enrollment of 3%, so we see that number increasing. A lot of it has to do with the support services that we have provided for our students to ensure that we are working closely with them with regard to financial aid, with regard to behavioral health services, with regard to other ways in which we give students that sense of belonging so that they stay with us. There are other opportunities based on new programs for increased enrollment. You've seen our new doctoral degree in education that has a cohort of at least 20 students. We introduced last year a new master's degree in library and information sciences, as well as a master's degree in data science. A couple of years ago, a new master's degree in accountancy, and of course, new degrees that are coming up in early childhood development, a planned new degree in construction management, a planned new degree in electrical engineering. So these are in heavy response to the demands that are coming from the industry, from the professions, and we are confident in that particular trend of enrollment growth picking up. And so what with still the ongoing buildup and the need for increased professionals with higher level competencies, other kinds of opportunities through the new drone technology and the training we brought in through a NASA space grant, and more organizations wanting those who are FAA trained, FAA certified drone pilots in a number of different areas, as well as the need for other, such as those in cybersecurity, data science, forensic chemistry, among other key fields.
Where are we at with the University of Guam's maybe online degree programs?
Yes. Our doctoral degree in education is fully online. We have a fully online Master in Business Administration degree program, a fully online master's degree in reading. Most of these are a fully online master's degree in I think it's TESOL. Most of these fully online degrees are graduate programs. We found through our research that it is the working students who are inclined to pursue master's degrees, who want that convenience of online learning. We stood up a new center for online learning with dedicated staff. We provide training and certification for our faculty, both full-time and adjunct instructors, before they are able to teach online. We have a suite of many different undergraduate online courses that, of course, serve our markets, not just here, but throughout the region.
Okay, yeah, because that was my next question. I was like, would you morph into the baccalaureate
Yes.
degrees? You know?
I will have my provost address that question.
Thank you. Yes, with regard to our distance ed programs and online programs, we've established additional 2+2 programs with regional schools and colleges, and we've seen a great interest and enrollment in those areas. As you may already know, we do have a program also in criminal justice, right, with NMC in the CNMI, as well as elementary education programs in YAP, elementary ed, special education in Palau, and other programs that are forthcoming as they are seeking us out. And so we are engaged in those conversations. We've got programs in place, and we continue to develop additional coursework for online delivery.
Okay. At this point, do you have a number on your online students at this point? I mean, you know, I mean, it'd be great. It's a great point of, again, revenue generation. Right?
Well, we
Roughly.
have at least 400 courses running online,
Yeah, okay.
or in a hybrid format. And of course, enrollment at about 400 courses at about 20 students per course. We're at about that.
Okay, yeah. Okay, thank you. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Lujan. Senator Gumatato, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and with full disclosure, I am an adjunct instructor at the University of Guam and have been for the last 12 years. I don't have any, I'm just disclosing that I don't work directly with the administration on any of their financial discussions. I just deliver a single course. I just wanted to put that on the record. I just wanted to just ask a real quick question, and I apologize for not being in the room at the time, but again, going back to the roof repairs, the skylight repairs, those are all, have already been bid already, or are they going to be bid with the infusion of this money?
Yeah, so we haven't gone to bidding. We're working on that. So it's unlikely we're going to be done by the end of the year, but we will have been encumbered by the end of the year.
Okay, so let me ask you, you guys already have all the bid packages are ready to go. They just need the money to start.
We have specs all ready to go.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we need to package them and get them out.
And Randy, if I can, and I don't know if anyone else can answer, but once it starts, how long will it take them to do this work?
I think these are mostly 6-month projects.
So why I was asking if these are maybe accreditation related types of issues, I would hate to see the accreditation team coming in. They're up there as they're actually doing this work.
Yeah, that won't affect it.
Okay, all right. Mr. Chair, that's all. That was my only question. I just wanted to just double check on that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator Gumatato. Senator Barnett, you recognize.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Sidus Masi and Biba Betnes, to the people of Guam, to my colleagues, and of course, thank you to the panel for showing up. I just first wanted to start with the financial stability issues that were mentioned by the good senator from Tamuning, who I just want to remind the body supported my amendment when we did the 22% raise for the University of Guam. So I had proffered an amendment that said the University of Guam shall not raise tuition for students for school year 2024. 2025, and at the time, there was a lot of pushback from Mr. Wiegand about how this would jeopardize or could potentially jeopardize the accreditation because of the financial independence and stability issues tied to that accreditation. And I, at the time, of course, disagreed, and the body as well disagreed. And I noticed that you're now fully accredited, and in perusing your accreditation report, I didn't see a single mention of those issues. And so while I want to sit here and take your word for it that golly gee willikers, you don't want to increase tuition for the students, I think outside of an amendment that actually says that in black and white, I'm just not so confident. And you know, in attending Charter Day and speaking with a lot of the students at the University of Guam, they're very grateful that this body chose to freeze tuition. And so I just want to express that that's my intention to proffer an amendment that I know that you would probably oppose again. But I would just state that again, there's nothing in the accreditation report that talks about the amendment or the legislature's ability to, which I think is absolutely germane. We can give you money and we can put strings attached. And so those are going to be the strings that I'm going to attempt to attach to that. I did want to ask, because you were talking about a budget shortfall. So the last fiscal year, what was your budget request versus the actual? And if you could just tell me the prior year for that, because with the Guam Department of Education, they were also shortchanged on their budget request. And just as a footnote, I voted no on the budget because I saw a lot of these significant shortchangings of different agencies to include the University of Guam. So ma'am, could you answer that?
So for FY 2025, the actual request is $44,994,284. The actual appropriation was $34,216,147. For FY 2024, the request was $42,005,656. The actual appropriation was $31,151,457. In FY 23, it was $33,980,278. That was the budget request. The appropriation was $23,630,902. In FY 2022, the request was $26,055,751. The actual appropriation was $22,631,000.
Thank you, Doc. Yeah, you guys weren't the only one shortchanged. The Guam Department of Education, which I think is also a gem of education for the island, was shorted some $47 million. So just consider that. You whittled down your original request. So you, like you had said, you were originally requesting some $12 million, and the raises were included in that, correct?
That was the 5% faculty salary adjustment. The Board of Regents authorized adjusting faculty salary scale that had not been adjusted since 1992. And so the purpose was to bring them more current. And so currently the faculty salary schedule is at the 2024 Coupa level. And so they are now where they ought to be, but there's still the outstanding 5% that is still owed to the faculty of $1.1 million. So that's part of the amount that we've taken out.
Thank you. So you took those out, then what happened with those, the need for those issues? Did you move money somewhere else?
Well, because the funds aren't there, that had to be paused. We asked the faculty union for their patience because of the funding situation. And so they are still relying on that as a board policy. We, of course, are being mindful that if the funds aren't there, then that can't be paid.
Right.
Yes.
So, and I think just based on the original public hearing, there's just been a lot of talk in the community about this $5.7 million going completely towards raises and salaries. And that's not the case anymore.
No, it's just for what's included in the budget. The only salary adjustment reflected is for the 5% for faculty.
Right, and so, but a lion's share of this $5.7 million is going to this accreditation-related priorities, which is essentially salaries and benefits, correct?
Right, it's for the personnel that are supporting all of those.
Right, so what's gonna happen when you run out of this 4.4 for those accreditation-related priorities? Are you planning to come back and ask, because it's not a long-term funding solution?
We're mindful of some of the other constraints that were provided, or rather, some of the other factors that forced us to have to pay for a higher costs. The increase in the retirement contributions, the increase in terms of the health insurance, other increase related to utilities. All of those were unanticipated increases. And so now that those are more transparent moving forward, we recognize that we need to sort of balance the books.
Yeah, on that note, are you still hiring at the University of Guam?
Are we still hiring?
Sorry.
We have a number of recently vacated positions that are faculty lines and so forth. And of course, because these are critical to the degree programs, for example, we just lost a chemistry professor. We're losing an engineering professor. These directly impact these degree programs. And so we must replace them, otherwise that compromises the programs.
Yeah, DOE also lost a PIO that you guys had hired, right?
A PIO?
Public Information Officer from the Guam Department of Education was hired at the University of Guam?
That one was not a PIO. That one was for the advancement office,
Sure.
which was
I
a
mean, she
replacement.
was a PIO at DOE.
Yeah, that was a replacement for an administrator. This is a staff line that was a replacement for an administrator line that has not been in place since last year.
You know, the Guam Department of Education recently went through a process called cross-leveling and maximization, in which they examined the ratio of students to teachers, and then made a bunch of different recommendations about consolidation and closure. Just anecdotally, I hear from students, that they're sitting in classes with 3, 4, 5 students. So has the University of Guam undertaken any effort relative to cross-leveling and maximization to look at the ratio of the students to the faculty?
Yeah, that is currently underway. It's called a process of program review, where we take a look at the number of enrolled students, the number of majors, the number of graduates, the credit hours that are produced as a result of the number of students enrolled, and we are identifying low enrolled programs and looking at attrition as faculty vacate. Obviously, those are not filled, in anticipation of possibly closure or consolidation.
I have 19 seconds left, so I just want to make this clear. The accreditation report, which is on the website, some of the areas for development cited were Title IX compliance, and also they suggested that you go through efforts to increase student retention and graduation. Can you, for the edification of the members present, go over the findings that were recommended in the accreditation report?
I will have our accreditation liaison officer go through these findings.
Thank you. You only wanted the recommendations or the commendations,
Oh,
sir?
yeah, that's fine too. Yeah, that's great.
Let's go with the recommendations. We'll get through this. All right. So noted was there anything in particular you wanted me to cover or read through them? So the update, the student handbook, code of conduct, Title IX, policies to align with best practices in higher education and comply with applicable federal regulations. We are in compliance. That has been addressed. We've had our EEO and Title IX officers also get additional training. The student handbook is online and available and updated. Of course, that will take us through 2025, which means we were going to need another ratification for the next few years. Strategic enrollment plan to be more responsive to market trends, retention priorities, and resource availability. Actually, we just had a consultant with us last week, and we are expecting a report. We are doubling down on retention and looking at other markets for recruitment. We've had a great uptick in recruitment with regard to graduate programs. Implement transparent, user-friendly practices developed collaboratively by academic and student affairs that provide definitive and complete course scheduling information to minimize bureaucratic hurdles and ensure students receive accurate, essential, and timely academic planning information. The University of Guam is currently engaged in a student success equity intensive, as well as a year-round schedule plan. We are engaged with a consortium of other schools in which we share data and give our data so that we can get the best information. We're actually rolling out the year-long schedule April 1. So students will be able to plan accordingly. Our policies are also being looked at to ensure that there are less hurdles for students for them to register and complete their higher education. The enhanced inclusion by actively involving adjunct faculty, staff, and students in shared governance to ensure diverse perspectives are considered when developing the institution's priorities and policies. Student government association members have a seat at university or institutional level committees, whether it's admin council, the faculty senate, so students are engaged. The faculty union, you may have heard, is very engaged with the faculty. Whether or not they have been able to engage part-time faculty, I don't know. Create, and implement an advancement plan. We did pick up, again, an advancement associate who has been working collaboratively with the president and the executives. Co-curricular strategies within the Triton ecosystem of support to enhance student retention and graduation, ensuring ineffective strategies are phased out and promising practices are adopted or expanded. You know, I want to add on this in particular is that we do have a retention and enrollment task force in place, which is led by Dr. Gina Rojas of Enrollment Management and Student Success. And so we've got a cross-section of employees, faculty, administrators, students, and staff. You know, a lot of times people don't consider, oh, the staff members. The staffs are very knowledgeable about when are the heavy times, the light times during the semester, and they are at the front lines also engaging with students. Improve the program review process by clarifying the relationship between institutional reviews and those conducted by professional associations, establishing practical timelines for reviews and incorporating structured feedback mechanisms to ensure continuous improvement of academic and program quality. Again, external accreditation like ABET, right, are those for the business school. Social work just received 8 years not too long ago. And so again, faculty are engaged in that process alongside staff, students, and administrators. We got 8 years. And so we continue to work on these improvements. There's always room for improvement. But Senator, also, if we take a look at the commendations, particularly I want to add and show that, that the University of Guam, embodying its mission with a strong sense of collegiality, deeply rooted in the local culture, place, and community. And so we exist to deliver public value. And we can see that in the graduates that we have in the various organizations across the island and the region. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know I'm out of time, but I just also wanted to say for the people, there were several other commendations that the University of Guam received, but I also wanted to note that in the recommendations, there was absolutely nothing about don't let the senators freeze tuition to benefit the students. So, Sidos Masi, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Burnett. Senator Tulahi, you're recognized this time.
Just good morning to all of you from the University of Guam and DOA and OFB. I'm going to ask some questions to DOA, if you don't mind. You're also representing BBMR today. So, Mr. Byrne, the legislature, we are relying on the CRER reports to indicate that there is enough money left to cover these bills that appropriate the excess revenues from certain fiscal years. Do you believe we need to wait for the audit to be done to be sure that the revenue is realized and that it can be backed up or tracked correctly?
Thank you, Senator. I think there's two things I'd like to address on that. The first is that the CRER is the most immediate information that we have. It's updated monthly. As I mentioned to the speaker, DOA and BBMR review it very carefully to make sure that the information in it, and as far as revenues are concerned, it's reporting actual collections is as up to date as possible. With respect to the audit, as I mentioned at the informational briefing last week, the audit is actually prepared on a different basis. It's not prepared on a budgetary basis, except for that one page that resides in the middle of the audit, which is the budget actual expenditure. That's the only schedule in there that's presented on a budgetary basis. To my mind, an audit is a confirmation. The reports that we prepare during the course of the year on either basis are more immediate and more important to me, as a manager of finance, than something that happened, even the best circumstances, it's going to be 6 to 9 months after the year end because of the complexity of our particular audit, which includes making sure that we have all the component units, including the university, completed and included in the audit. So what would be concerning is if the audit presented information that was highly at variance with the interim information that's being presented to you, to this body, and indeed to the world. But that hasn't happened, and it won't happen.
All right, so that has not happened in the last few years?
No, ma'am.
All right, thank you. And so the university was one of the first to announce that because of federal grant cuts or changes, that they would have to realign their university. Have you had to realign other departments and agencies of the government of Guam because of that?
We don't have a whole lot of firm information on that. At greatest risk, because that is where the greater amount of grants are, is in the public health area. We've been reassured, and that certainly we've had no issues, that Medicaid is not going to be affected by any of these reviews that are currently being undertaken by the federal government. They have indicated that there may be some adjustments to some programs, but we do not have any details. And at this moment, we're collecting grants as per normal.
All right, do we have a backup plan in case they do make cuts?
Well, yes, but that has to be done by each agency. And that particular agency has a lot of programs, essential welfare programs that are funded by the federal government. Our best backup program is to talk to the agencies and make sure, the federal agencies, and make sure that our funding, and in particular for the territories, the funding is not interrupted.
All right, so you're not advocating that we set aside some of this excess revenues from prior fiscal years for those potential shortfalls?
At this moment, we wouldn't really know how much, if any, that we would have to set aside. Some of these, hopefully, if there are any changes to these programs, they wouldn't necessarily impact this year, but they would impact fiscal 26 more than fiscal 25.
That's
certainly
right around the corner.
we've undertaken, with the chairman, to alert him should we have any indication of any significant change in our federal grants.
All right. DOE announced in February that they were no longer able to use their ARP money for these contracts that they had entered into, and that they had to pay it first and then get reimbursed by the ARP. Is that still the case?
As far as DOA is concerned, yes, I believe so. I've asked them for an update on that, and I'm waiting for that information.
To your knowledge, has DOE paid for the invoices on that contract? That contract is ongoing already. Have we made the payments, or are we overdue?
Well, the payments that they need to make are actually a whole lot of payments. I think in that 51 million that they were talking about, there's a lot of invoices involved. Yes. I don't actually know, and that's part of the information I've asked for.
It's my understanding that they haven't made payment and we might be incurring interest, but you're not aware of that?
No, ma'am.
So you don't account for potential interest that has not been budgeted for at all, or even the payments that DOE has to make that we did not budget for because that was supposed to come out of ARP funds?
The way DOE or the system works at the moment with regard to their finances is they don't make interim reports. In my previous responses with regard to the line agencies in general, we attempt to do interim reports, and as the CFO mentioned last week, we're going to formalize that into quarterly reports. We don't prepare those for DOE. We would recommend they do the same, and indeed that was kind of the information that I was asking for, but we're not involved in the day-to-day process, even though they are part of the general fund, which is a bit of an anomaly.
All right, and even though that we've been put on notice that they have to use local funds to pay for these contracts, I'm not clear. Maybe OFB, Mr. Lahi, you could...
Point of information, Mr. Chair, to address her question.
Yes, please proceed, Senator Borja.
In regards to GDOE, because I've been in communication with them over the last couple of days in regards to the reimbursement, upfronting the cost. They have submitted 11 million. They've got $2 million back within 10 days. They have identified local funding within their allocated budget funds, or the funds that they currently have, to pay for the upfront costs.
Thank you, Chairman.
So right now, there's no request from the legislature to support that, the contracts.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Could I ask how much interest was paid?
As of right now, I'm not tracking any interest. I mean, the invoices have been submitted as they've come in to US DOE requesting for, but I'm not tracking any interest that has been reported to us.
Interest paid to the contractor.
I'm not tracking any of that, but I can find out.
Yes, and Mr. Lai was going to ask you, OFB, because I know you participate in these, there's an education finance committee meetings that you have?
Yes, they had one yesterday, but I'm not the analyst who has
Oh,
oversight
sorry.
of that. I could, if you have a
Okay.
question, I could.
Sorry about that. All right, so Mr. Byrne, when we were in here for the budget, for this fiscal year's budget, I don't think you were here that day, but Lester was here and assured us that he and OFB and the administration had agreed that the budget before us was sufficient, and that he had also given us a list of recommendations of increases and decreases, or that were made, or a list that he showed where we gave that they had agreed that UOG would get 3 million more, other agencies received less, and but they said that was sufficient on that day. And then he gave us a list for supplemental appropriations that he thought we should make, which did not include UOG except for the $1 million for the repository. That's, I don't know, you believe that then that, and then you talked about the money, and he did also, about the 8 million from the Treasury Capital Improvement Fund that was also given in addition to UOG for the student services construction shortfall, for the furniture, fixtures, and equipment for that center. Do you think at this point, you know, we've heard that from GMH that the governor took the 20 million of the CIP money, so it's no longer available for CIP, that they need that money from general fund money or not? GMH.
Thank you, Senator. To be clear, you know, what transpired with GMH is that there was, as you rightly say, 20 million originally allocated to them from ARP money. I think you're aware of some of the circumstances that led to the result, but the result was that 10 million was retained for CIP purposes, and there was a concern regarding the method of their procurement for some of those contracts that finally got actually obligated under those funds. And 10 million was effectively used for operational payments, which were paid by DOA on the basis that the relief that they should get from not having to pay those operational payments would allow them to increase the money that they could spend on capital projects. But you know, circumstances have moved along a long way since this transpired in December, and I know they are asking for a good deal more money for both capital projects and for operational costs.
Yes, so they pretty much testified that you used 10 for operations or vendors, and then the 10, there was no 10 left for CIP projects, and that they were not able to make that up in any way. Now they're asking for more. So do you think that that is more critical to replace that right now, because those projects were supposed to go forward or not?
I mean, these, you know, all these demands seem to be critical. Budgets in the commercial world, budgets are more fluid, and I was more used to looking at forecasts than budgets. However, in the public sector, budgets are important because they're founded in statute. So it's really hard to change a budget, but it is important to recognize a change in circumstances. And clearly, the hospital, I mean, you can just walk past and see that it needs a considerable amount of investment. And I think I'm due to go inside the door, and not next week, the week after. So I will form my own view as to the conditions within. But
so as of today,
if you're asking me, is that more important?
Yes, more urgent. They're all important, but there's one more.
Should have a higher priority.
Urgent, yes.
Than the university.
For the limited money that we have.
Then
yes.
You know, it's really hard to answer that question, because they obviously both think that these are priority projects.
All right, I'm going to have to save my questions for Yoji to the next round, but so I have one more for Mr. Byrne, and so the D system for Homeland Security, they announced that they didn't pay their bills, and so now we don't have access. They don't have access to that information. Isn't that a critical?
Yes, it is, and DOA is addressing it.
Is what?
Is addressing it.
So you're able to pay it? Are we going? Do we have access today?
No, I don't believe so. But what the vendor has promised is, actually the vendor did two things. They promised that it would be restored when we paid, and they also promised to forgive 1 year's worth of billings, which was, I think, very generous of them. So when all that's completed, it will be restored.
All right. With what funds?
With just, you know, like other homeland ones, we have to dip into the general fund to be able to do that. But we're talking about 70.
Their current appropriations, though?
Yeah, yes, we're talking about 70,000 in total.
Okay, that's great. I guess I can ask you, Oji, one question. You said you were moving, you announced that because of the grants that had been cut, you had to rearrange some employees or move them around to other places. Are these places generally general fund funded or other grant funded?
No, some of them include like the land grant units for cooperative extension. Part of that is locally funded. These are agencies that may have some leftover funds that are associated with their own federal funds. And so those are spaces where these particular types of employees end up, you know, landing. not necessarily positions that are, they're not positions that are locally funded. These are soft funds.
I'm sorry, what was that
Soft
last word?
funding, yeah, soft
Soft
funding is
fund-
non-locally
Okay.
appropriated funds.
All right. I guess I'll hold my questions for the next round. Si Diyos Masi. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Talahi. Senator San Augustine, you're recognized at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For ULG, what does the 5% tuition increase would equate to? What is that dollar amount? And based on what?
Thank you so much for that question, Senator. So a 5% increase starting in like the fall semester would equate to about $700,000 for the fiscal year. And then if you tack on another 5% for the next semester, we're looking at about like 1 million, 1.2, based off of a 3,000 student enrollment.
So in other words, 700,000 to start the year, and tap on another 700,000 to finish the fiscal year.
It's a little less because we see a slight dip in the spring enrollment. So the way that our the plan was laid out, it was per semester. So if you add on the 5% for fall and then the 5 + 5 in spring, we're looking at about 1.1 million for the full fiscal year. So our academic year and our fiscal year, they're both different timeframes. So
Understood. But you're looking, because you're dealing with fiscal year, you're not dealing in academic year.
That's correct.
Okay, so on a fiscal year basis, it'll equate to about $1 million.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's not really a whole lot of money. My next question for UG is, I'm looking at the list that you provided to the speaker, 4.3 million. What is this referring to? Is this saying that these are the positions you're going to hire that supports the WAS?
Thank you, Senator. These are the positions that are currently in place. So we did a breakdown. This is a breakdown of the current staffing within each of these departments and schools and colleges. So you've got about a total of 163 faculty, 110 staff, and about 18 administrators who are supporting these units. They're hired under these departments today. And so the way that it's broken out is it's their total salary and benefits. You run it across the year, and then the periods left, it equates to $4.3 million in this fiscal year for 2025.
Okay, let's go backwards a little bit, okay? You're saying you have 163 faculty, correct?
Yes, just in these.
I'm just gonna go down across. You don't need to explain too much. Okay. The field FT is 200, equates to 28 million, correct?
For the year, yes, that's correct. For the fiscal year.
For the fiscal year. And you're identifying 4.3. What is that supposed to mean? You have 4.3 million to pay them? Is that what you're saying or what?
This is the 4.3 that is part of the breakdown in the letter, the March 5 letter that was sent to.
I'm trying to understand this.
Yes.
Your budget, well, how much money did they give you in your budget to fill all these positions? Total. Because remember, when you get a budget, it's a blank check.
That's
correct. Here's the total amount. You figure out where you're going to put it. And I'm just trying to ask, as I'm looking at this breakdown, it says 28 million, and then you got, 26 peers, 1.1, 4 pay peers, 4.3. Your letter says 4.3. Okay. What does it mean, Nate? Why do you need the 4.3? Are you asking for something that already you're budgeted for, or you're not budgeted for?
It's at the point where we will run out of the funds that are appropriated in the current budget law. So of the 34 million, right? So this is not everybody that's part of the 34 million. This is just related to this purpose.
Okay, so you would run out of money. So that's why you need 4.3, correct?
Yes, so if you project out what we've been appropriated for the year, that money will only take into account about 75 to 80% of our current personnel's salary for the annual year.
So in other words, in your back to the president because you're the one's going to be submitting the budget request for 2026. So on your upcoming budget for 2026, Madam President, you identify a 4.3 increase in your budget specifically for salary, correct? Not pay raises, just to keep people employed. Am I correct? Just shake your head because that's what she said.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam President. Now, I'm only bringing that up is because as we move along, then I'm going to ask the question that was asked by one of my colleagues earlier. How much did you get for fiscal year? And let's go back a little bit. Because Randy been here long enough at UOG. When was the last time the University of Guam received everything they asked for from the legislature? Please tell me.
It's always been a shortfall. Yeah,
Oh.
always.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's clear. It's nothing new.
Yeah.
It's something that you've struggled with,
Yes.
and the legislature's been trying, and every now and then, I know the legislature have made every attempt to find a way to fund you. It may not be in the budget, but, you know, a little bit here and there, and we've tried to work it. I just want to make sure we made that very clear because it's no different from DOE. No different from DOE. As a matter of fact, DOE, if you look at the record, it always increased every year, 10 million at a time. And at no time did they ever fire anybody there. And at no time did they ever close the school. So I don't want anybody to believe that just because you get a shortfall that the university is closing. It's not. There's certain things you just got to trim and you work with. And then we try, like I did last year. I first introduced the $4 million bill for University of Guam, and somehow it just disappeared from the supplemental. And I thank my colleague, Senator Board, that introduced the 5.7 because I was already working. I already introduced the 4 million, but he said, we're looking at 5.7. I said, I like it. If we have the money, then let's do it. Let's take care of University of Guam because I'm an alumni, and I fully support UOG, but when we're dealing in numbers, we got to be very careful how we deal with the numbers and how it spreads across the whole board. And then at the same token, back to the CRE. Mr. Burns, maybe you can answer and please explain, because I think some folks don't understand that CRE are generated monthly, and it's identified as if at the end of the fiscal year, that's what the amount hopefully will be. Am I correct?
Yes, Senator, it is generated monthly. At the end of the year, this report will
hopefully will hold.
Will be the 12 months.
Okay.
The audit report will be different because of the GASB adjustments.
That's correct. And audit reports reflect the year before, not the current year. So I'm good with that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator San Agustin. Vice Speaker and Vice Chair of this committee, you're recognized. Senator Ada.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for Mr. Byrne, what are we currently looking at on the CRER as of today, I guess?
You're asking about this month's collections?
Yeah.
I don't have a number for you, Senator. I can certainly find that out.
Okay. How about for February?
But for February, we collected $72.7 million. 72.7 million.
Okay. And so with this, because we're looking at the 5.7 million coming from the excess revenues adopted above, right? And and this is just a little bit, perhaps maybe for my understanding as well, we had a cumulative favorable variance budget versus actual for January of 34, right? 34.1 million. And then according to the, and that was according to the January 2025 CRER. And then February showed a 10.5 million favorable collection again for February. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And then so when you take both January and February, the should have been about what, about 44 million for January and February. But yet, for somehow it was based that we had a loss of 7.6 million. Is that correct? No.
That's correct. And the footnote on page 3, number 4, explains that we scrubbed the revenues in order to make sure that we got the cumulative right. And there was a difference of 7.7 million.
Okay. So then we're still tracking currently at approximately 72.7, right?
72 is actual.
The actual, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's good. That's the only question I had this for Mr. Byrne. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Please, Mr. Vice Chair, and just once again to reiterate, the actual 10 million that was reduced for the final amount, it's 25.2 million that's currently available in excess revenue. Senator Calvo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, have a day, buenas, everyone. Thank you to everyone in the panel. As I sit here, you know, I don't really have a problem supporting this bill because I do understand that this will support critical operations, much needed repairs, maintenance, ongoing capital improvement projects, priorities that are tied to universities' accreditation. But as I sit here and I look at the numbers and all, there's just one thing that keeps on going on in my head. And really, it's why were the salaries not prioritized during the initial budgeting process? And you know, when you receive your appropriations, I was just wondering, why do we have to wait last minute to address things like this? Because I would think that within the budget thing, you would already figure out that salaries are important in your operation. That's the only question that I really wanted to ask.
Thank you, Madam Senator. The salaries were prioritized in our original submission of the $44+ million for the FY 2025 budget request last year. Because of the shortfall, you know, our total salaries exceed even the appropriated amount to the University of Guam. We rely on tuition, which is much lower in part to cover for that, in addition to maybe other kinds of revenue generating programs that have fed in maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars. But when you have a total personnel budget exceeding, gosh, over $35 million and your appropriation ranges anywhere from 30 to 32 or 33 million, it's still not enough. We entered into our fiscal year on an unbalanced budget. We did not have a balanced budget. We were on what is a familiar term in the federal government, a continuing resolution on our budget, which is based on FY, you know, similar to FY 2024 levels. And because of that, we've had to implement our own sort of risk management efforts, our financial management spending plan, prioritizing those hirings that are critical, particularly when faculty have vacated mid fiscal year, and to ensure that our vendors are paid as planned. So it's become a shortfall, major appropriations shortfall, and a cash flow issue for us. So when there's an opportunity, as recommended by another branch of government, to seek any type of supplemental that's available, we're very grateful to Senator San Augustine and others who helped to advocate that $4 million during the fall of 2024 for a supplemental, which would have helped relieve most of what we are here before you today. But when that was taken out, it still left us again with an unbalanced budget, a continuing resolution, and yet we've never not prioritized these positions, Madam Senator. It's just that the appropriation was not sufficient to cover. So we're still left with this issue. We've managed to scale down the $12+ million budget shortfall to just the $5.7 million, just to get us, you know, to the end of the fiscal year. And we will manage all other needs as well. As you know, we still have the 2.6, 2.7 furniture, fixtures, and equipment needs. We'll figure that out. You know, we still have other needs. We'll figure that out. Every day's a fluid day. Every week's a fluid day with this current administration from the federal landscape, with grants being paused or terminated, and those employees relying on those grant funds having to be notified. We are monitoring that from a risk management perspective. We're trying to do what we can to help those particular employees. But, you know, we've got all of these different factors at play, and we're just hoping, you know, through the support of the 38th Guam Legislature to certainly provide some understanding of our current situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for clarifying all that. And I commend you guys. I commend UOG for putting together a task force to address the deficiencies. You know, I co-sponsored this bill, so I also thank the author, Senator Borja, for this. And moving forward, trust that, you know, we're going to be working with you guys on this in this matter. And I really don't have a problem supporting it. It's just that when we have issues like this that come in place, and with all the budget cuts and with all the things that we're facing, I think we have to be mindful about a lot of things moving forward. Anyway, that's all I want to ask, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Calvo. Senator Taitigui, you're recognized at this time.
Chujusmasi, and thank you for everyone who's here today from the University of Guam, as well as Mr. Burns, of course, OFB. I'm sure that everybody, you know, in Guam wants to continue to support the University of Guam, and that whatever appropriations, not appropriations, but whatever request amount in funding that all these agencies request, a lot of them didn't get their requests at all. Quite a bit of them didn't get the request. In fact, you know, it's just, it boggles me because University of Guam has been growing quite substantially, especially when it comes to faculty or just employees in general. And, you know, I just wonder, how is it that, and maybe you can help me, Rachel, the funding that was given to the University of Guam in FY23 compared to FY24, what was the increase in 24 from 23 in the budget that was given to the University of Guam? The increase from last year. So in FY24 you had, what, about 24 million, and then in FY23 you had about 24 million, but then in FY24, what did the University of Guam receive for their budget?
Thank you very much, Senator. So in 2024, there was an interesting thing that kind of happened in the budget law. It was a $27.5 million appropriation for general operations, but alongside that, in that process, in the 2024 budget process, we were working on right-fitting our faculty, and so we had submitted a $3.6 million request to work on those adjustments in relation to what was happening to other educators in other agencies. And so if you look in, I think the miscellaneous appropriations of the 2024 budget law, there was a $3.6 million appropriation provided to the university, which was used to go ahead and jumpstart that in FY 2024, which totals about $31 million for 2024.
So 2024, so you had an increase in budget from 23 to in FY24 of about $3.6 million more? Is that what you're saying? Because I'm showing here just in the general fund it was $2.7 million more, but you're saying there was an increase of 3.6?
The 3.6 was the miscellaneous appropriation that was provided to us.
Right, from the general fund. So
correct.
So total, then would I assume that the 2.7 is, and the 3.6 combined would actually give you more than that? Or is it the 3.6 part of the 2.7? See, I'm taking from what you, yeah, I'm taking from what was budgeted in FY24, I mean in 23, and then I'm comparing it to the budget in FY24, and I'm coming up with $2.7 million difference. I'm showing FY23 was 24,789,185, and then FY24 it's 27,557,457, which is an increase of 2.7. But you're saying there was actually a 3.6 increase from the previous year. Is that true? Not
So what was happening also in those years was that we were, of the total appropriations, we were tied to paying for specific items. Like, so in 2023, I believe there was a caveat where of the appropriation, so of the, let me just add this up right now.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, just the numbers
But of the,
is fine. You know, just the
of
numbers.
the 24 million, of that 24 million, 1.15 was to be set aside for this, for the USDA loan payment. So in you know, in hindsight, or in reality, we only had 23 million to work with to pay for our operations. So as we moved along into the next fiscal year, we were trying to iron out all of those wrinkles, because now, as we're realizing that the construction is happening, we're gonna have to start making these payments, those items still needed to be separated out, along with having to pay for the additional increases in like the 22%. Now we're realizing the annualized costs of that. On top of the 22%, we're paying for an increased benefits and things of that sort. And so those were taken into consideration in part in past fiscal years. And in 2025, this was actually the first year where we couldn't cover the full annualized costs of all of these changes. And so that's why we're here in front of this body today.
Okay, and Dr. Enriquez off the day, Viva Maestro Moro. Dr. Enriquez, can you tell me, what have you been doing then at the University of Guam to making, you know, some cost-cutting measures, or basically living within your means, considering the situation, considering GCC, you know, when they came to us last year, they asked for the same budget they got in the previous year in FY24, and living within their means. So I don't know what they did, but it's obvious they, you know, they didn't get any increase from the FY25 budget. So what is the university doing to do those cost-cutting measures?
Well, we have a financial management spending plan. We have also frozen specific positions. I have dual-headed at least 2 or 3 different administrators with an immediate savings of about $400,000. The University of Guam does not have the benefit of an additional funding source from the government of Guam, like the Guam Community College does, so we don't have that ability to keep our requests flat or reduce. GCC has the Manpower Development Fund, and
what about the territorial fund? Do you have that? Do you receive money from that? The special funds?
No, we don't.
Nothing from special funds?
Only for capital improvements.
So you do receive money from special funds?
Yeah, $1.15 million we set aside.
Right, so you do get some money, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so my other question then would be on going back to Rachel, in FY25, from 24, there was an increase, because in 2024, I'm showing you received $27,551,457, but in the budget this year, you received $34,216,147. That's an increase of $6.6 million that the University of Guam received. Other than the Guam Police Department, the University of Guam received the most increase in their budget than from prior years than any other agency in the government of Guam. So can you just confirm that you did receive 6.6 million more from last budget to this year's budget?
Again, thank you very much, Senator, for that. And so this is a cumulative, I guess, combination of what was happening in these fiscal years, right? So we received the $3.6 million miscellaneous appropriation for our adjustments, and obviously that flows into 2025. So of the 6.6, that 3.6 kind of folds into that, and then we received the 3.1 million in addition. And of the 3.1, 1.6 is absorbed by operations that are outside of operations that support our students to the Guam Cultural Repository. So we can cut the pie in different ways, but if you look at 27.5 to 34, that is 6.6. But what the numbers tell it's quite, I think it's supported. So, you know, an adjustment to any type of personnel costs, that continues on perpetually, just like what's happened in other agencies in relation to the 22%. That's impacting us as well.
So you did receive the 6.6 million increase?
The full 6.6 does
Yes.
not go to the university.
Yeah, 1.1 went to the.
That's correct.
Yeah,
yes.
that's all. Okay, so almost 5 million. Okay. To Dr. Enriquez, how has the University of Guam worked to align its budget request with the current enrollment? How do you do that? Is there a matrix that you have in or that you kind of align it to?
So the student enrollment, the academic part of the university's mission is one of 3 areas. The second has to do with the research faculty. We have teaching faculty, we have research faculty, and we have extension faculty. And so teaching faculty address teaching the 25 bachelor's programs, right? The 18 master's programs, the 1 new doctoral degree program. And so that's just one of a 3-part mission of the University of Guam. Tuition, projected tuition is factored in to our total budget request. And the tuition in itself does not make up, you know, close to 1/3 of what is required for our total operating budget. And so we track tuition as one of the levers, you know, in terms of enrollment, as one of the levers for contributing to the overall revenue needed to support our total operations for the University of Guam. And so with a new strategic enrollment management plan based on recommendations that have come through our consultant that will be presented to the university in the next 2 weeks, that is part of our strategic plan, strategic pillar number 4 with regard to improving the overall financial health of the University of Guam. That particular plan is critical for addressing ways in which we can diversify our markets, increase tuition enrollment, and certainly help to support the overall health of our financial, our financial portfolio.
In December of 24, the Board of Regents passed Resolution 24-27 to increase tuition. It was said earlier that it would begin when?
Okay, that is effective fall of 2025. If there is a need to increase, that we already have the authorization by the Board of Regents to move forward. We are doing everything we possibly can to avoid implementing any kind of tuition increase, but for the most part, that is a critical part of the university's overall revenue portfolio to support our operations.
Does the board also have that authority to raise salaries for staff and faculty? Or is that done in-house?
That is something that's based on, you know, obviously any kind of review internally by the administrative council. There is a salary committee primarily to address faculty salaries. That committee is comprised of representatives from the faculty union and from the administration. And of course, you know, they're always reviewing how do we remain current with regard to supporting faculty salaries. Not all of their recommendations are entertained because it always results in an increase in our budget to which we try to control.
How much balance is in your endowment foundation?
The endowment foundation, I don't have the exact figure. We can get that to you. Most of those are restricted endowment funds by donors that are maintained by the UOG Endowment Foundation's Board of Directors, which is they are a separate 501c3, and they have been very instrumental in supporting the 4 new buildings that are almost completed. 2 of them are maintained through a USDA loan application that they have been able to secure for, on our behalf, in addition to extending funding for some furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So they are a critical partner to this, but they've basically have exhausted everything they possibly can to help us out.
Rachel, since you're the accountant there, how much money is in the endowment foundation?
In the endowment foundation, I believe there's probably about $15 million in total in their portfolio. But again, just to reiterate the president's comments, they are restricted for the most part, and so the donors.
Who makes that decision if they're restricted?
The donors. So if a donor contributes $3 million for the Cowbell Fieldhouse, they can dictate, I want that $3 million to support repairs over the course of 5 years. That's kind of how these items work. We come up with a strategic plan. We work closely with the Endowment Foundation for these, and we try our best to make them in line with certain priorities, and a lot of these things are tied to like capital campaigns and things of that nature.
And is there a list that we can see on how they are divvied up and what are restricted and what is not restricted?
In our financial audits, our endowment foundation is also part of our financial report. They run on a calendar year basis as opposed to a fiscal year. So you do see some figures there. It's also reported out on the financial highlights if you all read the OPA highlights as well as ours. And so those are also available.
Oh, yeah, okay. And then it does tell us what are restricted and what is not, right?
In some schedules, yes.
Some, but if in the event it's not there, are we allowed to ask the University of Guam?
They would have to ask the endowment, but we can see what type of information.
Would we have to FOIA that information? Can we FOIA that information?
I don't think so.
If you want details, you cannot FOIA. They are 501c3.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I was wondering. Okay, well, thank you. I'll save my next round for the next questions for the next round. Thank you.
Tusumasi senators, at this time we've exhausted the first round, so we will recess until 2 p.m. When we come back, we will do the second round, and then we will go to the third round after we dismiss the panel for entertaining amendments. So at this time, we stand in recess until 2 p.m.